Welcome back to the deep dive, the place where we take that frustrating wall of information and basically give you the cultural code to climb right over it.
And today, we are definitely tackling something tricky. It's a linguistic phenomenon that trips up even like really advanced English speakers. American slang.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's not just about learning new words, right? It's about navigating a language that feels fundamentally unstable sometimes.
I know exactly what you mean. You could be someone who totally gets complex grammar. Maybe you can read Shakespeare, feel pretty confident, and then you walk into just a casual chat or watch a popular movie and bam, suddenly you feel completely lost.
Yeah.
They're using these perfectly normal words, but they've somehow totally divorced them from their dictionary meaning.
It's that instant feeling of being on the outside looking in, isn't it?
Exactly.
What the sources we looked at immediately highlight is that this isn't just a vocabulary gap. It's more like a rapidly moving cultural and social code. And if you can't decode it fast enough, well, you miss the jokes, you miss the emotional stuff, the nuances.
And maybe most importantly, if you're learning, you miss that feeling of just belonging in the conversation.
Precisely. We hit that classic trap ourselves right when we started looking at the material. The phrase, "I'm down."
Yeah, that one's a perfect example.
If you come at it from a purely literal dictionary angle, you'd naturally think the person's feeling sad, right? Depressed, low mood.
Makes perfect sense, literally.
But that kind of thinking, that cognitive dissonance, that's the whole barrier we're trying to break down today. In American slang, that simple phrase has been totally repurposed. It just means, I'm in. Or, I agree. Yeah, I'm willing to do that.
So if someone asks, hey, want to grab pizza later? And you say, yeah, I'm down. You've just signaled instant understanding.
You're in. You've shown that cultural and linguistic integration. It's a small phrase with big implications.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Our mission for this deep dive is to cut through that constant state of confusion. We've taken all the detailed source material you shared with us, and we're basically extracting the essential rules of engagement, the kind of surprising history behind some of these shifts, and hopefully the absolute best, most proactive ways to gain real confidence in navigating these fast currents of American conversation.
And the big picture, the thing we really want you, the listener, to grasp is that getting fluent in slang, it needs a level of immersion, proactive cultural learning that just goes way beyond old school vocabulary drills.
Right.
You can't just buy a book and memorize it. You have to understand the dynamic culture and the constantly shifting social signals hidden inside the words.
Okay, so if the key really is this cultural immersion and learning on the fly, why do the traditional resources let us down? Why can't I just grab a big slang dictionary, maybe even a digital one, and feel safe?
Well, that's the dictionary dilemma, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's maybe the biggest headache for learners. Traditional resources, just by how they're made, they're always playing catch up. Slang just moves so incredibly fast.
Yeah.
By the time a term gets noticed, defined, edited, maybe printed or updated online, it might already be starting to sound dated. Or worse, it's been completely dropped by the groups that actually invented it.
So slang has this incredibly short shelf life.
Exactly. A really short one.
And the sources we read really emphasize that the cost of using outdated slang, it's pretty significant.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just making a small grammar mistake.
No, it's more fundamental. The timing is everything. If you use a term that's, past its peak, it can immediately flag you as sounding genuinely out of touch.
Even if your standard English is perfect.
Even then, it just marks you instantly.
Wow.
And this speed, this constant obsolescence, it really underlines the social job slang does, right?
How so?
Well, it's about group identity. We've got some great examples in the notes that really show this timeline. Think about the term on fleek.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. It meant perfectly done, looking amazing, flawless.
Exactly. And it felt inescapable.
Right.
Just a few years ago.
Totally ubiquitous. Everywhere.
Yeah. But the sources suggest that even that term, which felt so current, so fresh maybe 5 years ago, it's already seen by younger people as a bit dated.
Already.
It hasn't quite hit the, linguistic graveyard yet, but if you use it now, it might sound a little ironic or maybe nostalgic.
Okay, so it's fading.
Compare that to, really dated slang. Imagine trying to seriously use groovy today from the 60s or 70s.
Yeah, that would sound ridiculous.
It's not just dated, it's a total linguistic throwback. It signals this huge time gap between you and the current conversation.
It's interesting, though, because it feels like generational shifts used to take longer. Like a slang term might last a decade or more.
Right.
Now you're saying you have to worry not just what it means, but when it was cool, sometimes down to like a few months.
That's the acceleration effect. And what's really fascinating is how modern tech has just poured fuel on that fire.
Social media.
Social media, absolutely. Platforms like TikTok, Twitter, or X, now short-form video, they act as what the notes called a slang incubator.
Incubator, I like that.
Yeah, because these platforms don't just spread new slang, they compress the entire life cycle, start to finish.
So the tech is like a centrifuge, just spinning the language faster and faster.
That's a great way to put it. We see terms go from absolutely nowhere, like zero usage, to being this massive global trend, and then just fading away into, near obscurity, all within maybe a single year. It's incredible.
It's crazy fast.
It is. The sources mentioned yit as a perfect case study here.
Why yet? Okay.
Initially, it was used, for throwing something really hard or just expressing intense excitement, like maybe after a great move in a video game or something unexpected happened.
I remember seeing that everywhere online.
It had this huge cultural moment, right? This intense wave across social media. And then, almost just as fast, it kind of subsided.
So if I tried to use yeet seriously today, widely, I wouldn't just sound a little behind the times. I'd sound like I was maybe trying too hard to catch a wave that's already crashed, maybe even making fun of it.
Exactly. You'd sound like you were referencing a past trend, possibly ironically. And this quick burnout, this obsolescence, it creates a real confidence issue for learners, doesn't it?
Totally.
You put in the effort, you master a term, you feel ready to use it, only to find out it's already gone stale.
Yeah, that's demoralizing.
Which is why the main takeaway here is so crucial. It's less about trying to memorize this massive, constantly changing list, because that list will be out of date almost immediately.
Right.
It's much more about understanding the basic process of how language shifts and evolves in real time.
So focus on spotting what's current, understanding the fluidity, not nailing down a fixed definition forever.
Exactly. It means developing an intuition, an ear for the current conversational flow.
And being constantly ready to kind of update your internal dictionary, basically becoming an active observer of the culture, not just passively consuming definitions.
Right. You've got it. Be a linguistic anthropologist in your daily life.
Okay, so now we get to the real heart of the confusion, right? The specific examples where the literal meaning just actively tricks you.
Yes. This is where you absolutely have to ignore the dictionary definition and just focus entirely on the cultural context. It's non-negotiable.
All right, let's start with emotions or states of being. These seem to get repurposed all the time. We mentioned salty earlier.
Yeah, salty.
If I heard someone described as salty, my first thought is, they need a glass of water, maybe they ate too many chips.
Right, a totally logical assumption based on the word itself. But in this context, the only thing they need to flesh out is resentment.
Oh, okay.
If someone's called salty, it means they're bitter or resentful, maybe just really annoyed about something. Often something pretty minor, like a small loss or perceived slight.
That metaphor, if you think about it, something preserved in salt or brine, it kind of works, like holding on to anger.
That's a great way to think about it, yeah. Like a preserved grudge, it implies that lingering resentment.
So I might say, he's still salty about losing the game last night.
Perfect usage. It's effective because it feels kind of visceral, doesn't it?
It does. Okay, what about lit? This one shows a really interesting journey, you said.
It really does. Lit has had quite the transformation, and looking at its history is key.
My first thought on lit would be, a light's turned on or maybe something's on fire.
Standard interpretation.
Yeah.
But in modern slang, it just means exciting or amazing or really high energy.
Right, that party was lit, or her performance was totally lit.
Exactly. Widely applicable now. But if we dig into the sources, we find this fascinating origin story. It actually comes originally from AAV, African American Vernacular English.
Okay.
And back then, its primary meaning referred specifically to being intoxicated, having consumed alcohol or drugs, being lit up.
Wow, seriously. So it went from describing a very specific altered state to becoming this general thumbs up for anything exciting or high quality.
It's a total transformation of meaning. And it's actually a pretty common linguistic thing. Think about words like sick or maybe bomb.
Yeah, those started negative too.
Right. They started with negative or kind of intense, visceral meanings and got flipped to mean something intensely good or impressive. Lit basically followed a similar path. It generalized the idea of an intense, high-energy state into just a positive quality, Understanding that history, it gives you insight into why that word was maybe chosen in the first place.
That gets you beyond just the definition, doesn't it? Into the why of the language. Okay, let's shift to terms about truth and telling the truth. Slang seems to love colorful ways to say, I'm not lying.
Oh, absolutely. And no cap is a brilliant example here.
No cap.
It works as this instant signal of honesty, but at the same time, it marks the speaker as being linguistically current. It does double duty.
So capping itself means lying or exaggerating.
Precisely. So if you say no cap, you're emphasizing that you're being absolutely truthful.
Yeah.
Zero exaggeration, the facts, straight up. It's very functional.
It's like a way to boost the credibility of what you just said, right? If I tell you, I aced that exam, no cap,
Yep.
I'm almost daring you not to believe me because I'm using this specific linguistic stamp of sincerity.
It signals to the listener, hey, I know this current language, and I'm using it to tell you I'm being totally serious right now.
Got it. And then they're spilling the tea, the queen of gossip slang, as you put it.
Yes. This is one that often just completely baffles learners the first time they encounter it.
It sounds like you dropped your mug. An accident.
Right. But no, it means sharing gossip. Usually the really juicy stuff, the scandalous details, typically in a casual, maybe even secretive setting.
Okay.
And this term is really critical because, as the sources point out, it has significant cultural roots in Black LGBTQ plus culture.
Ah, that's important context.
It really is. While the phrase has definitely moved into the mainstream now, knowing that origin is vital, it reminds you these aren't just random words popping up. They often come from specific communities. And understanding that helps you use the term, well, appropriately and respectfully. You recognize its history, maybe as a way for a community to share important, possibly coded information.
That definitely deepens the understanding. These words aren't just throwaway fun, they carry weight. Okay, moving to agreement and affirmation, we find terms that, to an outsider, might sound kind of blunt or even rude, like deadass.
Deadass is fantastic. It's a great regional marker, too, especially common in New York City and, the wider East Coast area.
And it basically just means seriously. Or for real.
Exactly. Synonyms are seriously, absolutely for real. It conveys total certainty, like zero doubt.
And the cool thing is how flexible it is in a conversation. You can use it to show you're surprised or you agree, like, no way, dead ass. Or you can flip it and use it to question if someone else is being serious. Wait, are you dead ass right now?
Perfect. It's a high-impact conversational tool. It packs a punch.
Yep.
It replaces a clunky phrase like, are you unequivocally stating a factual assertion? With just 2 sharp syllables.
Much more efficient. And finally, let's circle back quickly to I'm down. We know it means I'm in or I agree.
Yes, I'm willing to participate.
So what really connects all these examples, salty, lit, no cap, deadass, it seems to be that the actual useful definition is completely hidden. It's hiding behind these literal, often very physical or visceral word choices.
That's the key insight. You have to actively ignore or at least suppress the primary dictionary meaning.
Yeah.
And just prioritize the context, the tone, the situation. Which brings us perfectly to this core idea. Context isn't just helpful. It is absolutely king when it comes to American slang.
Right.
Because American slang isn't one single thing. It's intensely fractured. It's highly regional. It's deeply social. It's more like a collection of related dialects than one unified language.
And we have to stress the cultural roots again here. Slang starts somewhere, right? It originates within specific communities.
Yeah.
And the sources pointed again and again to AAVE, African American Vernacular English, as just this massive engine for linguistic creativity, giving us terms like lit, and the cultural background for spilling the tea.
Understanding that source is just paramount. When terms like these move into the broader mainstream, there's always this kind of tension, right?
Mm-hmm.
The goal for someone learning is to try and use them appropriately, respectfully, recognizing that sometimes when a phrase gets adopted widely, its original cultural edge or political meaning can get kind of smoothed out or lost.
So cultural awareness isn't just bonus points, it's part of genuine fluency.
Totally integral. Then, beyond culture, we hit that geographical layer. The regional specificity is huge. What works perfectly in one city might sound totally alien or just confusing in another part of the country.
Like different sublanguages.
Exactly. Let's map some of these out. If you look at the West Coast, especially Northern California, you run into hella.
Hella, which just means very or a lot, basically.
Yep. That movie was hella good. Or there are hella people there.
But if I tried using hella seriously in, I don't know, New York or Philadelphia...
You'd probably get a funny look, maybe confusion. The reception would be totally different. It marks you as being from a specific place.
Okay. Now, heading south.
Down south, you have y'all. Now, y'all is pretty widely understood across the U.S. now, I think.
Yeah, most people get it means you all.
But it's used most often and just most naturally as a regional marker in the South.
Yeah.
It fills that gap for a second-person plural pronoun. But the real test, the masterclass in Southern linguistic nuance, is the incredibly complex phrase, bless your heart.
Ah, yes. This has to be the ultimate example of tone just completely demolishing the literal meaning. And it's such a dangerous trap for a learner.
It sounds so kind, so sweet.
Like the nicest thing someone could say to you.
It is entirely deceptive, potentially. Well, yes, it can be a genuine warm expression of sympathy. It's very frequent, very regional use, is as this subtle, super polite, almost passive-aggressive way to signal disapproval or pity, or even to gently imply that the person is, well, kind of clueless or foolish.
Wow.
So if someone says with a certain tone, oh, you tried to fix that yourself, well, bless your heart, that might not be a compliment on your effort.
It could mean, you poor, naive idiot.
It could definitely carry that implication. You absolutely must hear the tone, catch the subtle inflection, read the whole situation to know if you've just been genuinely blessed or mildly, politely insulted.
That just hammers home why simply memorizing vocabulary is useless here. You have to listen for the subtext, the feeling, the context.
Okay, let's bounce back to the East Coast. We know deadass is big in New York. What about slightly south?
Right. New York loves that directness of deadass, maybe terms like yo. But move down just a bit to Philadelphia, and the sources introduce us to maybe the most famously ambiguous slang term in America.
John?
J-A-W-N, John. The sources mention the show Abbott Elementary, set in Philly, as a great place to hear it.
Perfect example.
And John seems like the ultimate barrier to entry because, from what I gather, it can mean basically anything.
That's the core confusion for anyone not from Philly. Yes. John can be a thing, an object, a place, a person, even an idea or an event.
Anything, like any noun.
Pretty much any noun, yeah. So if a native Philadelphian says, did you check out that new John over there?
Yeah.
Or, hey, pass me that John, they're relying 100% on the immediate shared context.
Wow.
The location, what objects are around, what you were just talking about. All of that is needed for the listener to decode which specific anything they mean by John.
The cognitive load that puts on a non-native speaker must be immense.
Huge.
Because a local just instantly processes the ambiguity using that shared context, but a learner hears anything and their brain just freezes.
Exactly. It proves that context isn't just for nuance. Sometimes it's needed just to figure out the basic part of speech, let alone the actual meaning.
Using or even just understanding John correctly feels like a very high-level badge of regional familiarity.
It absolutely is deep Philly knowledge.
Okay, so we've got cultural roots, regional sublanguages. We also need to talk about the social context. Audience awareness. The sources kept saying you have to know who you're talking to.
This is where applying the slang becomes really critical. Slang is super segmented by social group. Like the slang used by professional online gamers is going to be very different from the slang used by high school teenagers, which is different again from the slang used by, say, dedicated hip-hop fans.
Okay.
And crucially, you absolutely have to know where that professional line is drawn.
Right. You wouldn't walk into a super formal job interview or a big board meeting and drop a dead ass.
Definitely not. No. The risk of sounding way too casual or unprofessional or maybe even disrespectful is just far too high in those settings.
Makes sense.
The sources give a great example. A teacher. A teacher needs to understand this kind of linguistic code switching perfectly.
How so?
They might occasionally use a very current, pretty harmless slang term with their students. You know, to connect, build a bit of rapport, show they're kind of listening to the youth culture.
Right, relate a little.
But the vast majority of their communication, instructions, feedback, evaluations, that has to stay in more formal, standard language. Real fluency in this area means knowing exactly when to switch the code on and off.
Okay, so let's accept it. American slang is this constantly moving target. It's driven by culture, region, social groups. So what are the best, most practical, most reliable ways for a learner to actually try and keep up?
Well, the core philosophy, like we said, it just has to be total immersion.
Immerse yourself.
Immersion is really the only way to develop that crucial gut feeling, that intuitive understanding of how the language works now. You have to actively surround yourself with the language as it's really spoken in today's American culture.
Let's break that down into concrete things people can do, media strategies. Where should our listener be putting their attention?
Okay, visual media is absolutely key. TV shows, movies. Because they give you the visual cues, right? The body language, the situation, the context that makes slang make sense. The notes strongly suggest watching shows set in specific regions of the U.S.
Like Abbott Elementary for Philly and John, we mentioned that.
Exactly. And the active learning technique here isn't just like kicking back and watching passively.
Right. What should they do?
We'd recommend a multi-step approach. First, maybe watch a scene with English subtitles on. Focus specifically on when a slang term pops up.
Oh, okay.
Pause it. Think about the situation. Who said it? To whom? Why? If you need to, maybe quickly look it up.
Got it.
Then, step 2. Immediately rewatch that exact same scene, but this time with the subtitles off. Pay really close attention just to the tone of voice, the inflection, the facial expressions, the body language. Check if your understanding holds up.
So you're actively training your ear for the nuances.
Exactly. You're moving from just passive entertainment into like targeted linguistic workout.
I like that. What about audio? Just listening.
Listening to music is a massive resource.
Yeah.
Especially hip-hop and R&B.
Why those genres specifically?
Artists in those genres are often right on the cutting edge of language. They're frequently coining new terms, playing with words in ways that eventually trickle up or down into everyday chat.
So music is like a test lab for new language.
It's a rapid-fire test lab, yeah. A good tip is to look up the lyrics of new songs you like. Often, annotation websites like Genius will have users explaining the current slang meanings right there in the margins.
That's super helpful. And then there's the giant in the room, social media. The sources called it a gold mine and the ultimate slang incubator.
It really is. It's the fastest way to see what's current right now. TikTok, Twitter. These are the places you see slang being used instantly in everyday back and forth conversation.
So what's the strategy? Just scroll endlessly.
Huh? Well, maybe not endlessly. We'd suggest something like slang scrolling instead of doom scrolling.
Okay, slang scrolling. I like it.
Curate your feed a bit. Follow accounts that are known for using current language trends. Maybe pop culture commentators, short-form comedians, maybe verified cultural influencers or trendsetters.
And what are you looking for?
Consistency. If you start seeing the same new term or phrase used repeatedly by different people, different accounts that aren't connected, you can be pretty confident that it's both current and reasonably widespread.
That makes sense. Spotting patterns. The notes also had a slightly surprising one. Stand-up comedy.
Yeah, stand-up.
Yeah.
Comedians are masters of observational language, right?
True.
They rely heavily on using current, relatable slang to instantly connect with their audience, make their stories feel immediate and funny.
So where should someone start? Some comedy is pretty niche.
Good point. Maybe start with more mainstream comics, people known for observational humor like maybe Jerry Seinfeld, Jim Gaffigan, folks like that. Their slang use is often pretty clear, and the context, the setup of the joke usually makes the meaning obvious. It's a relatively safe space to start decoding slang in action.
Okay, that covers soaking it all in through consumption. But then there's the scary part. How do you bridge that gap into actually using it, or at least practicing, without sounding totally fake or messing up badly in public?
Right, the practice phase. First, we got to talk about the tools, specifically the cautionary ones. Urban Dictionary comes up a lot.
Yeah, everyone knows Urban Dictionary.
It's hugely popular, but you absolutely have to use it with extreme caution, like major grain of salt.
Why?
Because anyone can add a definition. Anyone. So the entries can be inaccurate, they can be wildly sarcastic, they can be inside jokes, or, and this is crucial, they can be really offensive or inappropriate.
Okay, so don't just trust the first definition you see.
Definitely not. The vetting process is key. If you find a term there, look for consistency. Do like 3 or 4 different entries, basically agree on the core meaning. Does that meaning match how you saw it used on TV or TikTok? Double check, triple check before you even think about using it yourself.
That fear of making a mistake, though, using a word wrong, sounding stupid, that's a huge mental block for learners. So what's this slang sandbox idea?
The slang sandbox, it's basically the idea of trying out new slang in really, really low stakes situations first.
Yeah.
Like, definitely don't try out that brand new phrase you just learned in a big work presentation.
Right, bad idea.
Instead, maybe try using it in a text message to a close friend. Someone who knows you're learning and can give you gentle feedback if you misuse it. Or maybe just practice saying it out loud to yourself or in an informal voice note.
So you can play with the sound, the intonation, the context without risking public failure or, professional embarrassment.
Exactly. It's a safe space to experiment.
And I think maybe the most important piece of advice here, just behaviorally, is getting over the fear of simply asking someone what something means.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Curiosity is your best friend in conversation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Most native speakers are actually pretty happy, even delighted, to explain a new word or phrase. It makes them feel knowledgeable. And approaching it with genuine curiosity shows you're engaged, you're interested. It doesn't signal deficiency.
So how should you ask?
Keep it casual. Keep it curious. Something like, oh, that's a new one on me. I haven't heard that before. What does that mean? Or, I like the sound of that phrase. What's the story behind it?
That approach shows real interest, right? Helps you connect instead of just marking yourself as out of the loop.
Precisely. And finally, let's loop back to the main goal here. The top priority, really, is to develop that ear for how people actually talk.
Understand it when you hear it?
Yes. Fully understand the slang when you encounter it. Trying too hard to use it constantly, forcing it, mimicking, that often just sounds inauthentic.
Which kind of defeats the whole purpose of trying to fit in or sound natural.
Exactly. Focus on building that passive recognition first. You're expanding your overall vocabulary, and slang is just a particularly fast-moving part of it. Understand the nuance, decode the tone, grasp the intention behind the words, even if you personally never, ever say the word John.
Okay, so let's try to sum up this deep dive then. Slang. It's fluid. It reflects culture. Context, regional, social, historical. It's absolutely essential, not optional. And the only truly reliable way to learn and keep up is through active, immersion-based learning where you're allowed to make mistakes.
It's a really dynamic, fascinating process. And if you think about it, slang is doing more than just communicating meaning.
Yeah.
It acts as this powerful signal of belonging, right? Of in-group identity. It evolves so quickly, partly because as soon as a term gets too common, too mainstream, maybe too easy for outsiders to adopt, the original group often moves on. They coin something new.
To maintain that boundary.
To maintain that sense of shared identity, that exclusivity. They keep the linguistic fence moving to stay distinct.
So the real deep dive isn't just into the words themselves. It's into the constantly shifting social games and group dynamics that the words represent. The language moves to stay ahead.
Exactly. So the final question for you, the listener, is this. When you hear that new slang term, that unfamiliar piece of code, the real intellectual puzzle isn't just what does it mean. It's what identity, what group, what sense of belonging is this new word trying to project right now. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we take the articles and notes you send us and really dig in. Today we're tackling something pretty crucial. Moving beyond just the basics of American slang. You, our listener, shared some great sources focusing on, well, leveling up. Getting past just knowing cool. We're aiming for genuine fluency, right? That next step.
That's absolutely right, yeah.
Isn't it?
Looking at these sources, the main thing is slang isn't just a list of words. It's dynamic. It's culture. So our mission for you today is really about confidence. Think of this as your roadmap. We're going to unpack some of the trickiest terms, the ones moving super fast, and definitely tackle that anxiety using slang at work without, sounding off.
Yeah.
And give you some real hacks for making it feel natural. It's about the words, sure, but also the history, the vibe, the context.
Yeah, because that anxiety is real, isn't it? Nobody wants to sound like they're trying way too hard. That's the core tension here, I think. How do you stay current and engaged?
Yeah.
Without falling into that trap of being, well, the sources call it a try-hard.
Exactly. A try-hard. Integration is the key word. Slang relies so much on shared understanding. If you force it, it just doesn't land. It feels awkward. It has to come from a place of actually getting it, understanding the origins, the nuances. That's what we need to focus on.
Okay, let's unpack this. Where better to start than those niche online spaces, places where terms bubble up and then suddenly spill into everyday life. We're talking words that maybe 5 years ago most people wouldn't have recognized. Now they're kind of everywhere. All right, first up from the sources, a perfect example of this quick spread. Sus. Our listener actually mentioned a specific situation, a coworker called the office coffee machine sus. And the listener was like, what?
Oh, that's a brilliant example. It really captures the confusion, doesn't it? Because if you only know sus is short for suspicious, you might think, what, did the coffee machine commit a crime?
Okay.
But the real power, the current meaning of sus, comes from a very specific place.
Gaming, right? That's where it really took off.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, sus, as a shortening of suspicious, has been around informally for ages in certain dialects. But its huge popularity now, that explosion, it's almost entirely down to specific online games, social deduction games. The source is pinpoint among us. You know, the game where you're trying to find the imposter. The whole point is spotting sus behavior. Anything that feels off, a bit shady, not quite right for how someone should be playing.
Okay, so when the coworker calls the coffee machine sus, they're not just saying, I distrust this machine. It's more like, I'm switching into detective mode here, and this machine's behavior feels deceptive, like it's trying to trick us.
Precisely. It's this quick, almost playful shorthand for a kind of low-level paranoia or distrust. Think about the words it replaces or adds nuance to, like sketchy or shady, maybe fishy. Sus is just faster, sharper.
Yeah.
And it carries that little flag, that signal of being plugged into digital culture. And that's the key analysis here. Slang like this jumps from games to real life because it's efficient. Why say 4 syllables when one works? And using it signals you're, well, current. You get it.
It's like a linguistic shortcut. Definitely. But, okay, let me push back a little. If it basically just means suspicious or sketchy, is there a risk it sounds less precise? Or maybe a bit juvenile, depending on the context?
That's a fair point. A really good question. I think sketchy often implies something more generally unreliable, maybe even morally dubious, whereas sus often points to a specific, maybe temporary inconsistency, like something's wrong right now. So the coffee machine being sus suggests it's malfunctioning at this moment or acting weirdly today. Calling it sketchy might imply it's always broken or poorly made. See the difference? It's subtle.
Okay. Yeah, that distinction helps. Sus is more about a specific instance of oddness.
Right. And mastering that nuance is key.
Okay, let's move to another term that's really crossed over. Riz. This one's generated a lot of buzz and honestly, maybe some confusion for people not constantly online. What exactly is Riz?
Riz is fascinating, a really great modern example of slang capturing a complex social thing. As the source mentions, yeah, it's short for charisma. But, and this is important, it's defined and used more narrowly. Riz means having smooth game. Exceptional flirting skills, basically, like natural magnetism, but specifically the kind used in charming people, often romantically.
The example from the source was helpful. The barista has mad riz, remembered my order, asked about my day, made me laugh. So it's not just being charming in general, it's about the effectiveness of the charm.
That's it, exactly. It's not just potential, like being good-looking or generally nice. It's the skillful, often seemingly effortless deployment of charm that actually works, that gets results. The difference between having charisma and having riz, it's like the difference between a static quality and a dynamic performance, a successful one.
Okay, but here's where that try-hard risk comes back in, right? If riz is defined by being effortless, isn't there a huge risk in, say, talking about your own riz? Or even pointing it out in others if you yourself don't seem naturally cool? You might just sound like you're trying to adopt a trendy word.
That is the absolute pitfall. You hit it right on the head. You can't gain riz by just saying the word riz a lot. Authenticity is everything here. My read on this from the sources too is if you use riz naturally, maybe commenting on someone else's skill, wow, they have riz, that shows you get the culture, you recognize it. But if you start bragging about your own riz, especially if it feels forced, yeah, you fail the test.
Yeah.
Slang shines when it feels organic. It should match who you are, your energy. Don't force it.
That makes sense. It's better used as an observation, maybe a compliment.
Definitely. Primarily externally focused, yeah.
Okay, let's shift to a pair of terms that work together perfectly to signal truth. Cap and no cap. We've probably talked about no cap before. Means seriously, no lie, that kind of thing. But the sources introduce its opposite. Cap.
Right, cap. It's simply the lie, the falsehood, the BS, the exaggeration. What's really neat about this pair is how they function together. Like an instant truth filter in conversation. You use no cap to vouch for yourself, and you use cap to call someone else out.
So if I said, hey, I climbed Mount Everest this morning, and you know I barely leave the house, you could just reply, that's cap.
Yeah.
And boom, we skip the whole awkward denial phase.
Exactly. You nailed the efficiency. It's high-speed reality checking for conversations. And the beauty is it allows for skepticism without escalating things too much. Instead of a whole formal sentence like, I must respectfully question the veracity of your statement, you just say cap, one syllable. And on the flip side, adding no cap is like taking a quick verbal oath. It instantly boosts the perceived truth of what you just said.
It's interesting how that changes the dynamic, though. If everyone starts using cap and no cap, does it make conversation faster, but maybe also more confrontational, even if it's casual confrontation?
That's a really insightful question. It absolutely speeds up the challenge. You are putting the other person on the spot more directly. If someone says, "Don't cap to me," that's a clear demand. Be real with me, tell the truth. But crucially, because the terms themselves are informal, the stakes often feel lower than a more formal accusation of lying. It kind of keeps it in the realm of casual banter most of the time. It's a tool for rapid-fire honesty checks, cutting out all the fluff. Speed, like we said, that's the currency.
Yeah, cutting the conversational baggage. Definitely see that. Okay, so we have these fast terms: sus, riz, cap. Now let's talk about taking them into places where speed sometimes clashes with, well, formality. Right. This is a big one for the listener. That core concern, using slang at work without losing credibility. That fear of sounding like the try-hard in the office. What's the absolute #1 rule here?
The golden rule, non-negotiable, according to the sources, is gauge the room, full stop. You have to observe first. Listen, get a feel for the existing linguistic culture of that specific workplace, even that specific team. Only then, if it feels right, if maybe others are using some informal language, then you might strategically sprinkle in something low risk. Think of it like linguistic seasoning. You want to enhance rapport, not overwhelm the dish. If you're the first person to drop slang in a formal meeting, you probably skip the observation step. Bad move.
And I imagine that room varies massively depending on the industry, right?
Oh, hugely. The sources really emphasize this dichotomy. Think about the extremes. Creative fields, marketing, design, maybe a tech startup. Using a word like lit, meaning great, exciting, excellent to describe a cool campaign idea, probably fine, low risk. It signals you're tapped in, you share the team's energy.
Right, it shows you speak the language of that creative world.
Exactly. It can even be an asset, builds connection. Now flip that. Think high stakes, high formality environments. Finance, law, maybe compliance departments. In these places, ambiguity is the enemy. Precision is everything. Using words like lit or sus. That introduces a level of casualness, maybe even vagueness that could undermine trust, or worse, be misinterpreted in a high-consequence situation. The linguistic risk is just way too high. You stick to excellent, superior, questionable, requires review. Formal language.
So in finance, it's not just about sounding professional. Imprecise slang could actually create real problems, like misinterpreting an agreement or a risk assessment.
That's the crucial takeaway. In regulated fields, formality serves a practical, sometimes legal purpose, protects against miscommunication. In more creative, collaborative fields, slang can serve a cultural purpose, build rapport, signal shared identity, different goals, different tools.
So the strategy for you, the listener, is listen first. See what colleagues use, especially maybe people a bit more senior. If your team lead drops an informal term occasionally, okay, that might be a signal. Permission granted, maybe.
That's the sprinkle approach. But there are a few terms the sources highlight as generally positive, lower risk options, words that can sometimes bridge the gap. Let's look at fire and slaps.
Oh, fire, meaning awesome, amazing, top-notch. The source had that anecdote about someone emailing a client that their project was fire, and the client loved it. That feels like a bold move.
It was definitely bold, but it worked because it conveyed genuine, high enthusiasm concisely. Fire is pretty widely understood now as meaning exceptional quality. It's short, punchy. In writing, like an internal email or maybe even a casual client note, if the relationship supports it, it often carries less baggage than some other slang. It feels pretty universally positive. You're just saying, this is truly excellent, but with more energy.
Yeah, it's got that immediate passion. Okay, now slaps. This one feels a bit more visceral, like tied to music or food originally.
Right. It is. Yeah, slaps traditionally meant a song or food was really, really good. It hits you. It resonates powerfully. But now it's used more broadly. If someone says a report slaps, they mean the presentation, the data, the analysis, it was undeniably effective, powerful, impactful.
I like the source's observation about this one. If your boss says that report slaps, it's like a signal for casual Friday vibes, even midweek.
That phrase captures it perfectly. It's a signal of cultural permission. When someone senior uses a term like slaps, they're consciously lowering the formality barrier just for a moment. It's acknowledging high quality in a more relaxed, appreciative way, if you hear that. That's an invitation to connect on a slightly more informal level with that person. Powerful for building rapport.
Okay, but let's be real. Mistakes are going to happen. You, the listener, might use a word slightly wrong, get the context off, misunderstand the tone. What's the strategy when you inevitably mess up?
This is crucial. Humility is your best friend here. Because slang is informal, mistakes are rarely fatal. The advice from the sources is super simple and really effective. Own it, laugh it off maybe, and ask for clarification right away. Something like, oops, did I use that right? Still figuring that one out.
Yeah.
Or wait, what's the perfect way to use that?
I like that. It turns a potentially awkward moment into like a learning opportunity, and it shows you're actually trying to learn.
It totally does. It shows you're engaged, you're paying attention, you want to get it right. People respect that effort and honesty. Trying to bluff your way through, much worse for your credibility than just saying, hey, I'm learning, help me out. That vulnerability, that ask, can actually build connection faster, especially in a team setting.
Really solid advice. Okay, let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
Because truly getting slang isn't just about what it means now, but where it came from. The history matters.
Yeah, the sources really hammered this point. Slang isn't just random sounds. There are stories behind these words. Understanding those roots is key for using them right and respectfully. Let's take the word bet. Bet. Yeah, great example. Functionally, today it means, okay, deal, yes, I agree, count me in. If I say, want to grab lunch, and you say bet, you're confirming confidently, like it's settled.
But the origin story is important here. The sources trace it back specifically to AAVE, African American Vernacular English.
Absolutely vital context. Bet has a history within AAVE as an affirmative term, often linked to confidence, maybe gambling contexts, asserting a positive outcome. When terms like this move into the mainstream, we need to recognize it's not just vocabulary shifting, it's a cultural exchange. That history of confidence and strong agreement is baked into its current meaning. The power in the word bet comes from that cultural root.
So for someone not from that community, the challenge is using it effectively without, well, appropriating it or sounding fake.
Right. The sources talk about achieving a cultural nod without appropriation. How do you do that? First, precision. Use it correctly. Understand it means strong, confident agreement, not just a casual sure. Second, frequency. Don't overdo it. Sprinkling bet into every other sentence. That dilutes its meaning, feels forced, and frankly, disrespects its cultural weight. Use it thoughtfully, where that specific emphasis makes sense. It's spice, not the whole meal.
Right. Using it well shows you actually understand its function and power. Overusing it just makes it a meaningless buzzword.
Exactly. Respect the origin by using it where its strength fits.
Okay, let's talk geography now. I love this idea the sources explored, a slang map of America. It really shows how, despite the internet, regional dialects and communication styles are still super strong. These local terms survive, and knowing them gives you this instant cultural literacy boost if you're traveling or talking to people from different places.
These regionalisms are fascinating. They often reflect the pace of life, the social norms of a place. If you can use them correctly or even just recognize them, it shows you're paying attention, you appreciate the local flavor.
Let's start in the Midwest, known for being, well, polite. And we get the term ope.
Ope. Oh, it's perfect. It's this tiny, almost involuntary sound, like a soft little verbal oops, or excuse me. You usually hear it when someone makes a tiny physical misstep, bumps into someone gently, almost drops something, reaches past someone.
It's like the sound of mild inconvenience combined with automatic apology. Captures that specific, polite, slightly anxious Midwestern vibe.
It absolutely does. A true linguistic fingerprint of that kind of social awareness and, politeness, instantly recognizable.
Okay, moving south, pace changes, maybe a bit more deliberate. And we find fixin' to.
Fixin' to, it means about to or getting ready to. Like, I'm fixin' to make dinner. It feels different than just I'm going to.
Yeah.
It implies a state of preparation, intention. You're getting ready for the action, not just launching into it.
Yeah, it slows things down a bit conversationally. Gives you a sense the action is imminent, but maybe not this exact second.
Reflects a slightly different relationship with time, maybe. More emphasis on the preparation phase. It feels warm, deliberate.
Okay, heading west now, West Coast, specifically thinking Northern California, we get the classic intensifier, hella.
Hella, oh yeah. Classic NorCal. Though it has spread quite a bit, still it feels very regional, means very or a lot. Something is hella good, hella expensive. It just replaces words like really or extremely with something punchier, more local. Got that laid back but still emphatic vibe.
And then, journey complete, over to the East Coast. Maybe New York City, known for being direct, wanting the truth now. We get dead ass.
Dead ass. High impact means seriously, for real, absolutely, no joke. Often used to emphasize the truth of something surprising or dramatic, or used in reply to show strong agreement or disbelief. It's emphatic.
It feels stronger than no cap somehow. Like no cap is a quick check, but dead ass is like laying it on the line. Final word.
It does feel weightier, yeah. Deadass has this specific urban East Coast intensity. It's a powerful validator. So yeah, this little tour shows how fluency isn't just words. It's understanding the regional rhythms, the politeness, the pace, the level of emphasis. Cultural shorthand.
Okay, this brings us to our final section. How do you actually internalize all this fast-moving stuff? And how do you deal with slang moving beyond words altogether? We've talked about words, but the sources really stress delivery. Tone is huge.
Oh, delivery is everything. Slang is packed with emotion. If your tone doesn't match the word's implied feeling, it just falls flat. Or worse, sounds sarcastic or confused. You really need to hear the rhythm, the intonation.
Let's use that example again. Spilling the tea. Gossip time.
Right. If you just say, deadpan, I am going to spill the tea now, it's weird. It doesn't work. That phrase needs a bit of drama, right? Maybe leaning in conspiratorially. A tone of excitement or intrigue. It signals an emotional event is coming. This is why just reading definitions isn't enough. You need to hear it. Audio, video, real conversations. That's where you get the crucial context of tone.
Hear the music, not just the notes. Okay. Now the big shift. Visual slang. Emojis. Moving beyond words.
Yeah, this evolution is happening incredibly fast. The basic emojis, like a thumbs up, are pretty stable. We all get those. But visual slang, using emojis as direct replacements for words or complex ideas, that's constantly changing, getting more nuanced, driven by the need for speed.
Like using the fire emoji, instead of writing out the word fire when something's great.
Exactly. Or, going back to our first term, maybe using the side-eye emoji O as shorthand for something being sus. This visual language is massively influenced by platforms like TikTok. Rapid-fire visual communication is king there. The key thing for you, the learner, is that this visual slang evolves even faster than spoken slang. An emoji's meaning can shift, become ironic, gain layers, practically overnight. Staying current means watching these visual trends.
Emojis feel like the ultimate efficiency hack. Max meaning minimum characters. And they cross language barriers sometimes too.
They are powerful, definitely, but also culturally specific. Like the skull emoji used to mean literal death. Now online, it often means I'm dying of laughter. That's a huge shift you have to learn through context.
Okay, so given all this, the speed, the nuance, the visuals, how does our listener actually speed up learning beyond just passively watching? What are the practical learning hacks the sources suggest?
Okay, first one, immersion through gaming, especially playing online with friends. Collaborative games, high-pressure ones, they force you to communicate quickly, clearly, often using the group's current shorthand. It's like language acquisition boot camp. You absorb it because you need it to function in that space. Way faster than just memorizing lists.
Yeah, like stress testing the slang in real time. Makes sense. What about more structured learning? Are tools catching up?
They are actually, which is pretty cool. The sources mentioned Duolingo starting to add slang modules. That could be a game changer for learners who like structured practice. These modules are designed to tackle the nuances.
Okay, give me an example. Like, how would a module teach the difference between sus and, say, salty, which the sources also mentioned?
Right. So imagine a quick quiz on your phone. Scenario. Your friend lost a game and is complaining endlessly. The app would prompt you, is your friend being sus or salty? The right answer is salty, meaning bitter, irritated, resentful about the loss. Then it would contrast that with sus, which, as we said, implies deception or weird behavior. These tools are starting to recognize that fluency means knowing these informal distinctions. Stuff you wouldn't find in a traditional textbook even a few years ago.
That's actually really smart, using formal tools to teach informal language effectively.
Exactly. And then for the absolute cutting edge, the ultimate immersion hack the sources pointed to, follow meme accounts.
Ah, yes, described as slang labs. I love that phrase. So true.
It really is. Meme accounts are where language evolution happens in real time. They test out new phrases, new visual jokes, new ways of using words. By following them, you're basically right there at the forefront. You see terms used in context, often with humor or irony, which helps lock in the meaning way better than a dry definition.
It's like the difference between reading the bike manual and watching a BMX video. You get the feel, the application, the vibe. Accelerates that contextual understanding.
Precisely. These hacks move you from just watching the language change to actually getting fluent enough to join in authentically.
This has been incredibly thorough. Wow. We've gone from AAVE, roots, and regional maps all the way to emoji nuance and workplace minefields. The big takeaway seems to be slang is powerful for connection, but yeah, handle with care. The path is clear, though. Immerse, observe, use these learning hacks, and don't be afraid to ask. You've got the tools now.
And hey, as a final thought, a really low-risk, high-utility phrase for you to practice literally today. The sources suggest focusing on, that's a vibe.
That's a vibe. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Just means something feels right, has a good energy, resonates positively, super versatile, low stakes, a great way to dip your toes in. Go try it out somewhere casual.
And zooming out just one last time, think about this bigger picture. Slang usually starts super specific, right? In a small group, AAVE speakers, gamers, our regional cluster. But the speed at which these terms now jump to global mainstream use, it's accelerating like crazy.
Yeah.
The gap between niche and universal is shrinking.
Feels almost instant sometimes now, yeah.
So here's the final provocative thought for you to mull over. What stands out to you about this? Could the next wave of slang bypass words entirely? If communication keeps getting faster, maybe we move straight to pure visual symbols, or specific sounds, or just tones of voice carrying complex meaning. What does cultural literacy even look like when language becomes an instant, maybe purely emotional or symbolic signal? Something to think about.
Whoa. A truly fascinating idea. Okay, keep watching, keep listening, keep exploring those vibes. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.